teachers, what was the best smartass response from a student you have heard? Back when I taught first grade, we were doing a writing assignment about Thanksgiving. The kids had to draw a picture of their family celebrating Thanksgiving, and then write about it. One little girl drew the table and chairs, and that was all. I knew she just didn't feel like doing the work, so I tried to prompt her. I asked where the food and her family were, and she snapped right back with, "Here washing the dishes." Had to give her credit for coming up with a logical argument for not doing the work. Not a teacher, but witnessed as a student. There was literally 30 seconds left of class and my buddy starts to pack up. The teacher didn't seem to mind, but when the bell rang and buddy got up to leave, the teacher said the classic line, "The bell doesn't dismiss you, I do," and buddy just continues to leave, gets in the doorway of the class and says, "If it decides when I come, it decides when I leave," and just leaves the class. The hero we need. My grandson, who lives with my wife, and I was sent to office one day for breaking dress code, no belt. The principal asked why he didn't wear it, to which he replied, "My crackhead mother stole it, and I didn't have time to get another." Principal got super mad and called us to tell us what happened and what he had said. I confirmed his story. Well, his crack addict mother came to visit last night and we didn't realize it was gone until this morning. I could audibly hear him gasp over the phone and immediately started apologizing. And every time I see him now he mentions it and apologizes. I had a teacher tell a classmate no drinks in class. He got up from his seat, picked up the teacher's drink, and deposited in the garbage with his drink. She sent him to the office. I was doing poorly in a middle school class on account of my mother having terminal brain cancer. This one teacher would constantly get on my case, even though he knew about the situation. I wasn't a bad student, I was just severely distracted from the situation at home, and couldn't always focus. I missed 2 days of school due to her worsening condition. The day before she died, he left a voicemail at my house explaining my 5 missing homework assignments, but no one really cared. I didn't go to school for a week after her death, and when I returned I said to him, "Well, now that she's dead I can finally finish those assignments right." I think he finally understood. The principal gave him a good chewing out too. Jesus Christ. He got off pretty easily, honestly. This was while working with 9-year-olds. We're doing number problems and a kid is having trouble with a sum. The sum is you have 40 sweets. You give half your sweets to your friend. How many sweets do you have now? I grab 40 counters and say to the kid, "Here are 40 sweets. If you give me half, how many will you have left?" Kid turns to me and utterly deadpan says, "I can't give you the sweets. You aren't my friend." 9 seems a little old to be having a hard time with half of 40. A fellow student in my class shouted that it was ducking freezing in the classroom. The teacher naturally told him not to use the F word, so the kid replied, "It's ducking cold in here." Had my class of working class kids at an art gallery. As we waited for our tour to begin, we played on the small playground near the door. A prep school kid in a uniform approached 2 of my boys and said, "I bet I'm smarter than you are." I watched to make sure no blood was drawn. My students can hold their own pretty much anywhere, and they don't accept insults casually. But they were cool. "No, you're not. Are you in grade 2? The boy said he was, and one of my boys said, "So then we're all grade 2. So we are all grade 2 smart." He went back to climbing the monkey bars. But the prep school kid continued, "I know I'm smarter. Let's do some math and I'll prove it." The toughest kid in my room looked this guy square in the eye and said, "Well, I'm smart enough not to do math when I'm having fun on a playground." That's pretty damn smart. My history teacher would spend half the class making jokes directed at the students. One student in particular always took the jokes on the chin and never really made any comebacks. Eventually, the teacher called him out and jokingly lectured him about standing up for himself. He ended his rant with, "You've gotta be a man. You've gotta be like me." The student replied with, "Well, which one? Do you want me to be a man? Or do you want me to be like you?" Edit. For those wondering, this happened back when I was in high school in the late 80s. It's one of those moments I will never ever forget. D. Hey Vasquez, have you ever been mistaken for a man? No. Have you? In HSR functions and relations, teacher would always start to say something Forget it and say, I lost my train of thought. Well, one day a buddy of mine replies, it's okay sir, there were no important passengers on board. Edit. For those who are asking, functions and relations is a subset of finite math. Think of an entire course on the quadratic equation and its various offshoots. To turn the question around, I was in class once, and one the student said wait, I had a thought. And my teacher responded, was it lonely? Had a chemistry teacher in secondary school. The original mad scientist type. Old, Northern Irish, we were in the Republic, used to reminisce about when it was acceptable to beat students, light our hands on fire, whenever new parents were touring the school, etc. One day a kid was telling a story, one of my dad's friends. Before immediately being cut off, don't be silly Mark, your dad doesn't have any friends. Cue boy shutting up for rest of the year. Another time a girl in our class, who was in a wheelchair, said she went for a walk around the grounds with so and so the other day, when again, immediately interrupted with, it's funny that you say it like that, because, you know, you can't walk. Looking back on it, he may have been a bit of an asshole. Why are you all talking? Because you're not. 2nd grade. Kid was sent out of the room. This is in regards to the rule, don't talk when the teacher's talking.
N.
Student A says to student B, dude, shut the duck up. Staff says, student A, we don't talk that way. In the future find a more appropriate way of expressing yourself. Student A says to staff, oh, sorry, then turns to student B and says, dude, would you please shut the duck up?
N.
Not a teacher, but some kid was cussing a blue streak in social studies, and another kid told the teacher. Teacher confronts kid, saying Tom says you were swearing. Kid replies, that's bullshit. Not a teacher, but witnessed as student. We had a substitute who was leafing through the yearbook and got to the senior superlatives. Our school mascot was the Eagles. She started reading some, if then aloud, and said, oh, that's nice. Sarah, most school spirited a student answered back, yeah, because she's always spread eagle. The substitute couldn't keep from laughing, as much as she tried not to. Let me point out that I'm female, since people will assume I'm a guy. I taught in an inner city school. We were talking about prime numbers, so I would have kids give me a number and we'd work out if the number was a prime number on the board. One kid wasn't paying attention, so me being a young teacher, I thought it'd catch him off guard and call on him. It went something along the lines of, Mark, do you have a number? Huh, I need your number. She eat, play it cool, girl. We can talk after class. The whole room lost their shit, and I turned red from embarrassment. They then laughed at how red I got. In a high school physics class, we were learning about friction and what there is, how strong it is. So, the teacher asks, so as an engineer, what would be some of the hard parts of designing, say, racing tires? Some kid in the back says, getting out of bed in the morning. Edit. Thanks for the gold. It's reassuring to know that the plight of the engineer isn't unique. That's pretty much the hardest part about engineering anything. Or anything in general. Spanish class in high school. Two guys who grew up in Spanish-speaking families were goofing off at the back of class. One guy says that he could stand the weight of another person standing on his stomach, and the other guy, who was probably just shy of 200 pounds, doesn't believe him. So the first guy gets on the ground in the back of class, and the other guy gets up and stands on his stomach. The teacher sees this and immediately yelled at the guy on the ground to get back into his seat. Without missing a beat, he says, I can't, he's standing on me. The other guy doesn't move because he wasn't yelled at. Meanwhile, the teacher continues to be upset that the guy on the ground isn't listening to her. I witnessed a rather sad one. In my chemistry class sophomore year, one of my friends was going through some family issues, and his dad just left for a year or so. The kid was acting up in class and the teacher was like, do you want me to call your dad? And he was like, if he picks up, tell him to come home soon.
N.
This reminds me of when I was a student. My granddad had died. It was my first day back after his death. I was still really upset by his passing, and a teacher said, you look like somebody just died. In true teenage fashion, I ran straight to the bathroom, locked myself in, and cried like a baby.